Hello everyone, you are watching The Monster Report. My name is Nicholas Adam Poling. You're joining us here today talking about and highlighting those creatures that make up film history, different monsters. So this is The Monster Report. Today, our subject, we're going to speak about 1954, the original creature feature. We're talking about Godzilla. 1954 in Japan, Gojira, which is what he was called, a Japanese word that combines the words of a gorilla and a whale. They combined the two words and came up with the name Gojira. They made the costume, the film. It was imported to American audiences, and that's our subject of what we're going to be talking about today, which is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Today I'm joined with a resident teacher here at Union City Junior Senior High School, Mr. Matt Carroll.
How are you, Nick?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing terrific.
It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, talk a little about kind of your experiences. You've spent some time in Japan and maybe seen a few monster movies of your own, whether here or overseas. So what brought you to that point of traveling to Japan, and what did you do there?
That's pretty much it. I mean, growing up, I grew up with a lot of Japanese culture that, I think at the time I didn't really realize was Japanese culture. Super Mario Brothers, this guy, Godzilla. And just over time, it started to develop within me. I just developed kind of a fascination, and pretty soon I saw an opportunity, and away I went.
Okay, so you taught a class over there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I taught English for 2 years with kids, kindergarten to high school level.
Okay, and going into a position like that, obviously there's a bit of shock, culture shock, the language barrier to break. What was the techniques or the tricks that you went through, the training, education that you needed to get prepared for a position like that?
Oh, to get prepared for a position like that.
Or even
I don't know if you
could
even
when you dove right in and.
It's kind of sink or swim. You get off the plane and you got to figure out, how do I take a bus to transfer from one airport to another airport? That's just to get to your, first day on the job. But after that, even just ordering food and getting your clothes cleaned or whatever everyday activities, become real challenges and real adventures sometimes.
Yeah. So you picked up on the language kind of over time?
A little bit. It kind of grew on me. My wife's Japanese, so she's been helping me little by little while we were dating. I pick up a bit here and a bit there, but...
yeah, and kind of unlearning English in the process of it, and the cultural ideals that come along with that. And recently, watching again the original Godzilla, watching the Blu-ray from Criterion Collection that was released just a few years ago, watching it with commentary, seeing the Japanese version versus the American version. Tell me about... was it entertaining? What did you find entertaining or fascinating about it?
Oh, it was massively entertaining. I mean, to have two versions of the same movie be so different and have them just back to back, without juggling, things like, well, I've got this one on DVD and I got this one on VHS. To have them both there in the same format and give them the same, quality attention to the presentation, just being able to sit back and enjoy them both at the same time was really incredible and a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy watching even watching it with commentary. We've got a couple of different versions. The classic media version here with Gojira with both American and Japanese versions on it, both with commentary by Godzilla experts in the Criterion Collection that you had the chance to watch with a commentary by a different Godzilla commentator. I find it's interesting how much academia is thrown into what we say it's just a monster movie, right?
Yeah.
But how much more of it when you learn how it impacted Japan culturally, historically, what was going on. What is Godzilla? What is he, is he an allegory for something? Is he a metaphor for something?
Well, I think, it's pretty obvious. You sit down with the movies, you kind of see the nuclear fire and death that is Godzilla. It becomes pretty apparent pretty quick. And you probably know more about this than I do. You've seen some of the history with the backstory that I'm a little unfamiliar with, but
sure. But yeah, that just even that idea, when you think of that culture, they've firsthand had experience with nuclear fallout.
Yeah, twice.
Twice.
Or 3 times if you count Fukushima.
Correct.
That's still really weighing heavily on people. They're really the anti-nuclear stance is really coming back strong after that.
Yeah, exactly. And so a nation, the only nation who's lost lives as a result of bombs used in wartime, and that becoming so real to them, this devastating power of this one device, this one bomb, this object of mass destruction, and not only the 2 that were dropped on them, but then the fallout that happened in the Castle Bravo incident with the boat called the fishing boat called the Lucky Dragon 5 or the Daigo Fukumaru, which was the Japanese fishing boat. They traveled a little too close to the Bikini Atoll Islands that they were told don't go there. Well, when you're told not to do something and no other fishing trawlers are out there, they decided to go out there. The sky lit up and they started heading back, but it was too late. The explosion wasn't a problem, but the radioactive fallout and the debris came from that explosion just covered them and their ship. This incident happened only 8 months before the November 3rd release of Godzilla.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, if you can't see the metaphor, beyond that, it's pretty in your face. Yeah. And especially, I love the sort of the unknown effects, just dropping the bomb. You got the radiation, which is like this invisible killer. Right. And I love the idea of Godzilla being like this, living below the ocean, and you don't even know it's there until, it's like, well, here it is, it's on us, and now we're feeling these effects of something, that we've done in the past. Right. Yeah. So maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but
that's exactly what we're talking about. It's being out there in a fishing boat. You think everything's safe out in the sea, and he's this invisible killer out there. And then when he comes on land, you have the destructive power of the bomb itself exploding. It's an unstoppable force of destruction. You can't do anything about it. You got to get out of its way. And
that's why I love Godzilla so much, because he is like a nuclear bomb, but he's like a walking nuclear bomb in slow motion. You see, it doesn't just happen all at once. It's like just building after building, just like this wave of slow destruction. It's like watching a nuclear blast happen, in slow motion. And it's even more terrifying.
And with that, with the tone of the original Godzilla movie, if you watch later Godzilla movies, you see that the tone kind of changed into a comedic tone.
It becomes Power Rangers, yeah.
Right, yeah. It's funny, it's comedic, it's lighthearted, it's more kid friendly. What about the tone to this one? Did you think that worked for this first movie out the door of Godzilla?
Absolutely. One of the few things I really like about the American version, with all the changes, is I think it does capture that sort of just ominous, this is it, there's just no escape. What are you going to do? The weapons are useless. It's this is the end of the world. This giant lizard's killing everything. Yeah. Just absolutely just a ton of fun and just a great feel for just watching the end slowly coming at you.
Yeah, and that somber mode, and the American version, I think a lot of criticism goes to the American version saying, well, gosh, they re-edited it, they put Raymond Burr as an actor in it. Never went to Japan. Never even went there. But obviously, when you're watching it, especially if you know a bit of the language and a bit of the culture, and you see even the quality difference between what was shot in America with Raymond Burr with some actors, and then trying to intercut him into their fooled audiences, though, in the 1950s.
That's what I was. Do you think it did, though? That's what I was wondering. Maybe these tricks, people just weren't aware of this kind of stuff. But I'm watching it now. I thought it was kind of glaring.
Well, and even discussions I've had with some people that you don't have to be a film buff, let's say, to see it now.
So there's something up, yeah.
But during that time, and listening to the commentaries, a lot of audiences, they may have only seen it once. They saw it in the theaters, or they may have seen it twice on a replay in the theaters. But for the most part, they only saw it a few times, so they weren't really looking for those things. They were kind of taking it, as the eye of the beholder.
Taking it at face value, not necessarily being so savvy about some of the tricks that people use.
Yeah, they weren't digesting. They weren't really taking it in as maybe a piece of art, but entertainment, and saying, wow. He actually went to Japan. He actually interacted with these people. So it was a case where they're watching it. They're saying, they probably thought that maybe the Japanese film directors even hired him to do this, and they realized it was American distributors later on.
Yeah, I'd love to go back and see that for the first time back then. But that's what I get for that.
Oh, it's okay. It's just and being able to see that, and I think that a lot of appreciation was given to the source material, because you got to see the Japanese version in its unedited form, and so you're looking and you're seeing how it compares with that American version, how we spend a lot more time in culture. We spend a lot more time on Oda Island, which is especially interesting to me, because these native people who have a legend,
sort of like
this mythological creature.
almost like a past Godzilla sort of worship where they'd sacrifice the young girl to calm the sea and stuff like that.
Yeah, so and almost a knockoff of the King
Kong.
Kong. Yeah, which Tomoyuki Tanaka, the producer of Godzilla, always was a big fan of King Kong. King Kong 1930s came out, and it just amazed the world with its visual effects. We never really had a big monster movie until the 1950s. I mean, that's a 20-year gap there without any big, giant monster movies. So you think now, if we make one monster movie, we're going to make 50 monster movies. Back then, that wasn't the case. The budgets really didn't fall in line with that. And so when he was deciding one day after seeing King Kong and overlooking, he was on a flight back to Japan, and he was looking at the clouds and saying, what would it look like if I saw a giant monster rise out of the sea? And then, behold, Godzilla came and began as the idea of an octopus. They wanted to make a giant octopus.
Oh, I didn't know this. Godzilla the octopus. That's crazy.
It would have been a mutated radioactive creature. So still falling in line with that idea of nuclear radiation, and monsters are born from that. So eventually it came down to a giant lizard, probably something along the lines of a dinosaur, combining a few of them. They had pictures of. Even more interesting is that, if you were to combine two dinosaurs, a T-Rex being a carnivore and a Stegosaurus being an herbivore.
The physiology doesn't exactly match up to really anything. Yeah.
But you know what? It looked cool on screen, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and having his dorsal fins light up when he's about to breathe
that's
fire.
still an awesome effect. The special effects in this movie are still, I don't think you can, even diminish, over the years. It's still absolutely great. Except for the occasion when, you see like the fire extinguisher sticking out of his mouth a couple times.
Yeah.
Smoke, but other than that, like lighting up the cars on fire and stuff, I thought was just terrific.
And you have the special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya was instrumental in creating not only the costume but the composite video, the composite film look to be able to make it look like Godzilla's this 160-foot monster with people down below.
Yeah.
That's not. He's not a 160-foot monster. He's a 6 and 7 foot rubber suit around a man who probably stood 5 foot tall. And so, being able to create that effect, he wanted to do it with the stop-motion visual effects that King Kong employed, but unfortunately, budgets and time. I'm glad it
didn't work out that way.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah. So the suitimation, the suit idea, lived on through even 2004's Godzilla's Final War, which we have 22 Godzilla films now. All of them, with the exception of the American release in 1998, all in a rubber suit. So they have not, even the Japanese haven't done a CG Godzilla. There's been shots. There's been a few shots in Godzilla 2000, where he's, and in Godzilla All Monsters Attack in the 2000s, there were a few CGI shots of him underwater. Okay. Yeah, but for the most part, 98%, 99%, we're talking about man in a rubber suit. It's pretty amazing. We're going to take a break here for just a minute. When we get back, we're going to take a look at the trailer for the new legendary Warner Brothers Godzilla that's coming out here in May. Right here, we're looking at February, anticipation of a May 2014 release of that legendary Godzilla. So when we come back, we're going to show you that trailer. We're going to have a little discussion about that. So we'll be right back on the Monster Report. Welcome back to the Monster Report. You've just seen the trailer for the 2014 Legendary Pictures Godzilla, directed by Gareth Edwards. So, what do we think of the trailer? I thought it was awesome until you told me who was in it, and I don't know how I feel about that. You don't know how you feel about the cast and crew, or the cast? I like Bryan Cranston. I'm on board with that guy, but who's the scrawny little dude? Aaron Taylor Johnson. Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yeah, K.I.S.S. K.I.S.S. So you're not quite sold on. I don't know. I didn't realize it was so star-studded. Like the whole,
it's kind of a lot of quick cuts. I didn't realize. Then you're like, oh, that's that guy, and that's that guy, and I'm like, oh, I know all these people now. It doesn't feel as mysterious.
Oh, okay, I guess. And when you think of the cast and crew that was used in Godzilla, some of them were unknown actors. Some of them may have been well established in certain areas. Even you go back to Star Wars. Some of them, that was their big break, but they never topped it.
That's true. Yeah.
And in one case, it was his big break, and it launched him into stardom, Harrison Ford. In the case of this Godzilla, we've got Bryan Cranston in a role. Should be interesting because, we've seen him in a lot of action.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Yeah, thriller action, government kind of roles. As I understand it, at least, again, rumor control will be coming out as the show progresses. As I understand it, that his role is more of a scientist, not a military, hardcore. He's got all the weapons to fight off the monsters, which is usually the role I found in monster movies. They always seem to follow people with all the power in the world that, despite all that, they can't do anything about it.
Yeah, completely, impotent against the dangers.
Right.
Yeah. It's always the guy with the brain that pops up and...
outthinks the monster or outthinks the story writers, I guess, in a sense. Because even, when you think of, a film like the '98 Godzilla, you still were following around scientists. Well, the budgets and money...
Let's do a whole... Can I come back and we can talk an entire episode on that
We will.
movie?
The 98...
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, Matthew Broderick. But
I love to hate that movie.
But that's why I appreciate War of the Worlds in the early 2000s. You're just following a guy trying to protect his family, and I wonder with this one we do have a family kind of going on with this. We have a father and son relationship and a parents and daughter. We have Juliette Binoche from Dan in Real Life, and we have Ken Watanabe, which I'm really excited about.
He's
seeing
great.
him.
He's great.
What we've seen him in, we've seen him in Inception. Anything else?
He was in. Was it Crouching Tiger, or was it House of Flying Daggers? He was in one of those. Wasn't
one of the two. Yeah, we'll have to do some research on that. We'll put it on the bottom of the screen. I can't remember. I remember seeing him in The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think the first Dark Knight film. The first Batman Begins. We had him as
You're right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Ra's al Ghul. Yeah, and so we're seeing him a lot more. I've heard his voice in some cartoon series too. He's got that great voice. It'd be interesting to see if, and I think again it's part of the rumor mill, that he might be somewhat of a modern version of Dr. Serizawa.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, who was the person in the original Godzilla who was responsible for the oxygen destroyer that eventually killed him, because even being a monster of mass destruction, he still needs to breathe. And this destructive
the
force.
Oxygen destroyer.
Yeah, I know. Pseudoscience, right? There is no such thing, right?
And when they show it, they show it off camera. He's like, "Watch this," and he drops it into this fish tank, and this girl freaks out, screaming. And I thought, "What is happening in that fish tank?"
Yeah, and then
they show it later on.
And you see that not only did it kill all the fish in the tank, but now they're just these floating bones.
Yeah, it's just floating like Heathcliff, just. Fish bones floating in there.
Fish bones, and then they dissolve away to nothing, which we see happen to Godzilla. So, sci-fi, even during that time, that's why I always go back to any time we get to see something about dinosaurs and the prehistory and the millions of years ago, and then it became billions of years ago. And we really don't know. We really don't know much about science when it comes from a film. So take it with a little bit of a grain of salt.
Absolutely. But you can't. Yeah, it deserves a chuckle.
So creating that oxygen destroyer, and even his character, despite what you might think of that device, is that he holds the power like Robert Oppenheimer did during when he developed the nuclear bomb, and saying, this is such a destructive force. I don't want another nation to have this.
But at the same time, if he doesn't build it, somebody else is gonna.
Right. Yeah, and so that's why, the self-sacrificial way, he feels like if I'm alive, and even if I burn all my notes...
Yeah, even if it's in his brain, somebody's going to get it out of there.
They'll torture him, they'll do something to get that information out of him. He just knows he can't, he won't be able to handle that. And so he says, I may not even be the right person to have this knowledge, so he willingly lays down his life. And so seeing that in a 1950s film, a suicide, at the end of a film, essentially your hero, if there is such a hero in this, because there really isn't, he's the only one who in the end has the weapon to take out this monster. But is Akira Takarada's character, who's Ogata, he's just a boyfriend of Emiko Yamane, and there's that love triangle we have between Serizawa, Emiko, and
who do you choose? Who do you choose?
Right.
Good looking and handsome, or one-eyed crazy scientist?
I know. Well, she obviously made up her mind, and there was that kind of conflict happening too, because she was arranged to marry Dr. Serizawa, but she loved Ogata. In America, this is a theme that is even in the 1998 or 97 Titanic. I don't want to marry the person that I've been betrothed to or arranged to be. I want to marry the person I love, and so she chooses Ogata. And so she's got that difficulty of telling Serizawa, I'm not in love with you. I never have been in love with you. I'm in love with this other person, and I'm going to marry him. And despite all that, she still respects Serizawa, and he's kind of half on the relationship.
I get the impression he really didn't care much one way or the other.
Yeah, go ahead. Go right ahead. Be happy.
I got the world in my hands here. Why don't you guys go make out?
Yeah. And I've got some problems too.
Yeah.
My problems are that I've just made this discovery and I don't know what to do with it. So it's interesting that we have Akira Takarada, who we talked about before we came back as the lead actually in this. He was considered to be the star of Godzilla, and heard the story before he wandered onto the set. The crew's all around, and he says, "Hey everyone, I'm Akira Takarada. I'm the star of Godzilla." And all of them looked at each other and said, "No, Godzilla's the star."
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, for his placement in the film, I think he does less than anybody else in that entire movie.
He does.
He's just, I mean, even, Emiko is like going around and kind of like being the, mediator between different people. You've got the scientists studying him, kind of arguing for, hey, let's not kill him. And you've got just this kind of, I don't know, this dude just walking around kind of being in the middle of it.
He's just there to look good,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Which I think even in the American release with Raymond Burr being added to it, he doesn't add much to the plot, but if anything, he makes it a little bit more understandable and relatable to American audiences. Because even when I was a kid, and people might look at it as a racist thing, but as a kid, if you're not exposed to the culture of seeing Japanese people around you, a lot, you might not be able to tell the difference between the two of them. But I imagine the same goes the other way. If their children are seeing American films constantly, they can't tell one American versus the other. It's when we grow up and we really see the difference, and we hear the difference in their voices, we see the difference in their personality, that we start to know the names better, and that's taken me a long time.
It's rough.
To really learn them and be able to even pronounce them. And I got to admit, I'm not entirely 100% accurate on it, but I do appreciate seeing these actors play different roles in the advancement of Godzilla throughout the years. And you might say, well, that kind of makes them discontinuous with each other. You've got Akihiko Hirata, who died in the original Godzilla. In the very next film we see him, actually not that film, but King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Now, is he playing the same character, or is he just...
No, he's entirely different characters. Same with Takarada. He's playing entirely different characters. And one, he was a criminal, actually. So he took away from, his hero role that he might play, the good guy, in most roles that he's played. Now he's the bad guy. But they're not the same.
Move the eye patch to the other side. I'm a different character.
In fact, in Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, Akihiko Hirata has an eye patch.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's evil in that, actually. He's not there to destroy Godzilla. He's there to run away from him.
Awesome.
So yeah, you get to see a lot of them. Momoko Kochi, Emiko Yamane, left film acting actually after this film because she felt like she was being typecast, and she reprised her role in the 1995 Godzilla vs. Destroya, actually. She came back to be Emiko.
Really?
In Godzilla's 40th anniversary, which was the death of Godzilla, actually, where he died at the end of that film.
Doesn't he die at the end of every film? Like, what's different about this one?
Well, some of them, but where... He's died in the 1954 one, but no, he's pretty much...
Oh, that's right. A lot of times he just storms back off into the ocean and all the kids wave by.
Yeah, something happens and he rides off into the sunset. That's kind of been the formula. A few of them, I guess you could have said he's quote-unquote died or disappeared, buried, defeated by another monster. So you got to see her reprise that role, actually, as Emiko Yamane. Now let's talk about Takashi Shimura. We've seen him before this film, and what was that film again?
Seven Samurai, one of my favorite movies.
Okay,
yeah,
by the great director.
Akira.
Kurosawa.
Kurosawa. I almost said Toriyama.
Yeah, Akira Kurosawa.
That'd be Dragon Ball, sir.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, he's absolutely great guy and just awesome, just charismatic as anything I've ever seen. Just can't take your eyes off him. I don't know what it is. Even if you don't understand the language, you just something about him just draws you in.
Yeah, and even as a kid, I remember he adds a lot of weight to this. He's playing the role. He's older. He's playing the role of someone in charge who's has a lot of knowledge. He's actually sympathetic to Godzilla. He's saying he's a misunderstood animal. Yeah, so that's where I did appreciate seeing him in that role and saying, this is a monster movie and we've got this great actor in a role like that. Isn't it kind of a step backwards for him? But in that time and in Japanese culture, that was not a step down, and he took the role with a great deal of seriousness. He didn't say, well, this is just another job, and just read the lines and look pretty for the camera. He really took it seriously, and a lot of them did. And I can't go anywhere without saying a little about the director Ishiro Honda, who is a good friend of Akira Kurosawa's, and
really?
Helped co-direct some of his films, even into the 1980s, before Honda's death in the 1990s. He was even co-directing and always very humble about himself, saying, well, you are this great director who's released all of these international successes. The thing is, Ishiro Honda, most of the films that he directed, even if they were monster films, had international releases and created a beloved character that children appreciated, young and old people appreciated, men and women did. I mean, it's just, this movie really kicked off a phenomenon, didn't it? Yeah. So, do you remember what maybe was your first Godzilla film?
I do. It was Godzilla versus Megalon.
Megalon, okay.
VHS.
Yeah. On the VHS copy. Oh, wow.
That's pretty good. I think they got sued for that one. There was like an Ultraman rip-off robot character that they weren't allowed to, I think, publish the DVDs or something for a while. Yeah, we still have yet to see a Blu-ray version. Oh, really?
There's a DVD version out now, an official one, but again, there's still a rights dispute out about that one, and it's, but yeah, one of my first one was the 1985 Godzilla, and I remember seeing it as a kid and being frightened to death of it.
I remember walking through a movie theater to see like 101 Dalmatians or something, and I just heard Godzilla's roar, and it scared me absolutely to death, just like standing in the movie theater, just hearing it. Yeah,
and then you go back and you see, the original Gojira, in its black and white glory and that somber tone of it. Even if you're watching the Raymond Burr one, I think that you really find yourself appreciating it, and you can look past the rubber suit. You can look past maybe some of the visual effects that look dated by 2014 standards. Here we are in the 60th anniversary of Godzilla, and we're still adoring this character. And now we're remaking it again, and we're going to see what that film looks like in May of 2014 this year. We're definitely going to come back for a role in that. Any last words before we close out this episode?
I can't think of anything. One of my favorite characters of all time, Godzilla. You can't beat him.
All right.
Thanks for having me in. I love talking about any time you want to sit down and talk Godzilla. I'm here.
Well, we're going to definitely keep this up in the future, and we got your homework for the next time.
Oh, yes.
The direct sequel to the original Godzilla, Godzilla Raids Again, or as it was internationally released as Gigantus the Fire Monster. We'll kind of talk about what that alternate title meant. So there you go.
I think it was remade as an Ernest movie, wasn't it?
It may have been. Who knows? Yeah, you probably know that. But anyways, yeah. So Godzilla Raids Again for our next episode of the Monster Report. Matt, good to have you on the episode.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Okay, and we'll be seeing you next time, and we'll thank you for tuning in. We're going to publish this out there. Everyone can see it on YouTube. We're going to be looking forward to that May 2014 release of Godzilla by Legendary Pictures. But for this first episode, we've appreciated the 1954 Gojira or the 1955 Godzilla King of the Monsters. We hope we've made you a bit of a fan by listening to this, maybe even sparked a little interest in starting your own Godzilla collection or watching some of these films. They're out there on DVD, Netflix. You can rent them, you can find them. Check them out. I think before you pass judgment on it, I think you need to see them for yourselves. So for me, Nick Adam Poling, this has been the Monster Report. We'll catch you next time.